freedom, man. That's what it's all about. You've got to groove on freedom, like the good book says.
Welcome. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. This show will discuss the topics of human consciousness, mind control, natural law, the occult, and all issues that affect the freedom of the people of Earth. What on Earth is Happening will endeavor to shine light upon the darkness of our world and to offer empowering solutions to the problems we face as humanity approaches its critical moment of choice. And now, here is your host, Mark Passio.
Welcome, everyone. You are listening to What on Earth is Happening. I'm your host, Mark Passio. Today is Tuesday, April 20th, 2010. The websites are whatonearthishappening.com and revolutionbroadcasting.com. The show is live every Tuesday from 8 to 10 p.m. And I'll give you the call-in number. Anyone wants to call in to the show, the call-in number is 347-884-9417. So when you call in, just hold on. I may be in the middle of discussing a concept or an idea, but I will get to your calls, okay? The number is 347-884-9417. So before we get into the topics for this evening, I want to make some general announcements about events that are coming up in the Philadelphia area. That's where I'm from. So really, really important and big event coming up this weekend, this Saturday night. And we really need to increase numbers for this because the last couple of turnouts, while, they were okay, there is definite room for improvement. And we really need to get more people involved, and we need to get more people showing up at these events to get information out to the uninformed general public. So this is the official End the Fed rally for the Philadelphia area. If you don't know what the Federal Reserve is, you really need to learn what it is and learn why it needs to go away. They're calling this event Fedstock because there's going to be a lot of great musicians at it. And it's all geared toward human freedom, and it's geared toward standing up against an immoral institution that really isn't creating anything good for humanity. So I quoted in a mailing that I sent out about this event the Chinese philosopher Wang Yangming. He said, to know and not to do is not to know. And I would take that adage a little bit further, and I would say to know and not to act is not to know or care. To know and not to act is not to know or care. So if you're out in the Philadelphia area, if you're from this region, and you understand what the Federal Reserve is, you understand how it is controlling the ability to prosper in our world and how it is attacking the freedoms and the sovereignty of the people of this land. Knowing is not enough. You need to take action, get out there, get other people involved, wake other people up, and actually do something about what you know. So this event is a march, rally, and concert. April 24th, that's this Saturday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's going to start at City Hall on the west side of the building. That's 1500 Market Street in Philadelphia. And then there's going to be a march down to the Federal Reserve Building. And then there's going to be a free concert in Independence Mall National Park. So I'll give my comments on this, and then I'll read the official announcement from the group that's hosting the event. As part of my mailing I sent out, if you still don't understand how intricately related the Federal Reserve System is to the destruction of our natural freedoms, then you haven't really learned a thing, or you've chosen to deliberately ignore it out of apathy, laziness, cowardice, or all three. Words are not enough. If you value your freedom and the freedom of future generations of humanity, take action. Stand with us in courage at this event and become involved with this cause today. Truth, Freedom, Prosperity is the group that is hosting and sponsoring this event. They're calling it FedStock, End the Fed 2010. It's the official End the Fed March and Rally for Philadelphia. And here's their description. The Federal Reserve System is the essential tool for big government that does not stay within its constitutional limits, leading to the impoverishment of we the people and the destruction of our liberty. In the heart of this city, where a people broke free of a royal house, this is the nation's premier End the Fed event. Come on down and have a blast rocking out for freedom on Independence Mall in Philadelphia. Show the nation with your presence that you want to end this lousy central bank cartel that has been sucking money out of America like a vacuum cleaner since 1913. Here's the general event information. It's going to start at Philadelphia City Hall on the west side of the building. That's at 15th and Market Streets in Philadelphia. Starts at 10 o'clock a.m. So be out at City Hall at 10. There'll be a rally there. The cost to attend the whole thing is completely free. If you feel like it's a worthwhile cause, then you can make a $5 donation to help pay for the cost of the event. The schedule is they're going to gather at City Hall at 10 a.m. They're going to have a rally there for about an hour. At 11:22 a.m., symbolic number, they're going to march down to the Federal Reserve Bank, and there's going to be some speakers outside at the Fed building. After that, at around 12:30, there'll be an outdoor rally in Independence Mall National Park, and the possible alternative weather location, if there's inclement weather, is the Independence Visitor Center. And there'll be speakers and entertainment. So far, the list of speakers, they have confirmed the great constitutionalist Michael Badnarik. His website is www.constitutionpreservation.org. And Gigi Bowman from Liberty Candidates. That's liberty-candidates.org. They're the confirmed speakers thus far. There may be some others added last minute. The entertainment, here's the great musical acts that are going to be playing at this event. Jordan Page, Amy Allen, The Almighty Terribles, Amp Killa, and Heist Click. So 5 confirmed musical acts. I think it'll be a great time. I really think everybody who is concerned with the issues that are affecting our freedoms in the modern day should be at this event. There's sponsoring and tables available if you want to sponsor the event, or if you want to host a table at the event. You can get in touch with Michael Salvi, and his email address is phillyc4l@gmail.com. That's phillyc4l@gmail.com. You can contact Mike if you would like to sponsor or host a table in the park. The websites are endthefed.us, phillyendthefed.com, and the group who is basically putting this all together, probably the best activist group in the Philadelphia region, and the people who I feel understand the dynamic as it stands with the greatest fullness in this area. That's Truth, Freedom, Prosperity. And their website is truthfreedomprosperity.org. Get involved. Get out there. That's all I can say. That's the last time I'll get a chance to make this announcement. I'll announce it again at the top of the second hour. Now, I'm going to start promoting for another event that's coming up in Philadelphia that's critically important. I know it's still kind of a long way off. This is going to be happening in July this summer, but I want to start telling people about it now. Anybody that listens to this program and anybody in the Philadelphia area needs to know about this conference that's coming up and also get involved. There's still time to get involved in helping in the organization of this event as well. This is called the Nikola Tesla Energy Independence Celebrations. The Nikola Tesla Energy Independence Celebrations. Now, if you don't know who Nikola Tesla was, I highly encourage everyone to research this great man and great inventor, because he brought so many innovations that we take for granted in our lives that are all around us. And without this man's brilliance, you wouldn't have electricity running into your homes. You wouldn't have the modern conveniences of electrical devices that we take for granted. So this event is going to take place in Philadelphia this July. It's a 3-day conference from July 9th to July 11th. So I'm going to read the press release for this event. The Tesla Science Foundation brings together scientists, inventors, and enthusiasts for a 3-day conference highlighting the need for a new energy paradigm. This July in Philadelphia, the Tesla Science Foundation will be hosting a 3-day conference and celebration to commemorate Nikola Tesla's legacy and world vision. A brilliant inventor who lived during the turn of the 20th century, Tesla's innovations resulted in the implementation of alternating current, the AC motor, wireless technology, and many other influential inventions that we now take for granted in the modern age. Tesla's vision to bring clean, free energy to the world through advanced wireless technologies was blocked by the financial and corporate interests of his time. Through this event, the Tesla Science Foundation will bring together like-minded scientists, inventors, and enthusiasts who share the common goal of bringing Tesla's advanced energy technologies to fruition for the betterment of humanity. The schedule of events is going to be as follows. On July 9th, there's going to be a reception dinner and an orchestral concert featuring the Divine Hand Ensemble. Their website is divinehand.net. Check them out. It's a great orchestral ensemble featuring the theremin instrument, which is an electronic vibratory instrument. It's conducted by a gentleman who plays the theremin, and they're going to play at the reception dinner. This is going to be July 9th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., and the location is still pending for that event. July 9th at night, there's going to be a Tesla birthday bash in Independence Mall Park outside of the Independence Visitor Center. That's at 6th and Market Streets in Philadelphia. That's going to be happening from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m., and they're going to try to get some Tesla coils out and throw some fireworks Tesla style outdoors at Independence Mall Park. Now, July 10th, there's going to be an event also at the Independence Visitor Center. It's going to be general exhibitions. There's going to be some inventions on display that deal with new energy technologies. There's going to be some music. We'll have some maybe outdoor DJs or bands, and that's going to be from 10 to 5. And that's just like a general information and vendor type event with exhibits and music. But there's going to be free presentations and lectures at the Free Library of Philadelphia, the main branch, 1901 Vine Street in Philadelphia. That's going to also be going on from 10 to 5 on July 10th. So there's kind of like a 3-ring circus on July 10th. One of them is just for the general public who don't know much about Tesla to try to do an outreach about him. One is for Tesla enthusiasts to come and hear non-scientifically oriented, lectures for the layman about Tesla, his technologies. That's at the Free Library of Philadelphia, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on July 10th. And I myself will be emceeing that event. I will be introducing all the speakers. So the next event on July 10th, also from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., is for scientists and inventors. So if you're a scientist, you're an inventor, you want to really dig deeply into some of these new advanced technologies, there's going to be a scientifically oriented conference, and that's happening at 2 Liberty Place on July 10th and 11th from 10 to 5 p.m., both days. That's 2 Liberty Place. That'll be on the 32nd floor. That's at 1601 Chestnut Street in Philadelphia. So that's that event. If you want more information about that event, visit the Tesla Science Foundation website at teslasciencefoundation.org. That's teslasciencefoundation.org. Philadelphia, PA, July 9th, 10th, 11th. 3-day conference on Nikola Tesla and his technologies. The Nikola Tesla Energy Independence Celebrations 2010. Extremely important. Why is it so important? Because, as I've said many, many times, and as I'll say many, many more times, the control of energy is the control of people. If you don't understand that, you don't understand how these technological and scientific so-called elites are really controlling the events of the world. So with that having been said, with those 2 events having been announced, I want to jump into the conceptual topics for this evening. I'm going to do a quick recap of some ideas and concepts that I've covered in previous shows and just give a general overview of what we do here. As you heard in the intro, this show discusses human consciousness, mind control, the occult, and any issues that affect the freedom of the people that live on this planet. So we'll be getting into heavy topics as the weeks progress. But to get to that, you have to build a foundation. And that's what I've been laying out. I've been laying that groundwork of conceptual ideas over the past few weeks. So essentially what we've covered thus far is we talked about truth. We talked about what truth is. We talked about why it's so important, because alignment with it, coming into harmony with what actually is taking place around us and within us, is what consciousness is all about. When we do that, we're building a world of order and freedom. When we get out of alignment with what is actually true, and we get off onto poisoned worldviews, we get off onto poisonous ideologies that are completely not in keeping with what actually is taking place within us and around us, then we really don't know who we are. We start to forget who we are. And this leads to disorder. It leads to chaos. It leads to further and further states of fear and control, which is a big part of what we were talking about on the last show. In general, we've discussed the aspects of human consciousness, how we manifest our consciousness in the world through our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. We discussed the human brain. We got into the physiology of the brain, the 3 components of the human brain, and how they're so critical to understand, because understanding how the brain works helps us to understand why behaviors that we witness are being manifest in the world. We talked about how the brain becomes imbalanced toward one brain hemisphere or another, leading to certain states of consciousness. And that I'm going to really get into that a lot tonight when we start to talk about worldview, which is the topic for this evening. See, what we basically discussed on previous shows, and I'll continue to emphasize this, is the ability to tell truth from falsehood is the underlying causal factor to everything we see play out around us. The philosopher Soren Kierkegaard said that humanity is only fooled in two ways. That's it, only two ways. We believe that which is not true, and we refuse to accept that which is true. That's it. That's the only two ways people are fooled. I would extend this to say the only two reasons that humanity experiences suffering are just that. We accept that which is not true, and we refuse to accept that which is. So, in keeping with that, we started looking into an ideology that I refer to as the biggest lie. Because when you start to discuss truth, inevitably the notion comes up, can truth be known? Is it possible to know what the truth actually is? And there's a philosophy out there. I refer to it as the biggest lie. This is the philosophy of the underlying philosophy, I should say, of every totalitarian regime and every tyrannical regime that has ever existed on this world. And this philosophy, this underlying ideology, is known as solipsism. Solipsism, I'm going to spell it, S-O-L-I-P-S-I-S-M. Solipsism is the belief, it is the ideology that there is no such thing as truth, that only our perceptions exist, that there is no such thing as objective truth or objective reality. Only our perceptions exist. That's what we base all of our experience upon, because that's all that's real. Perception is reality. That's the simple sentence that all that we call solipsism, the whole ideology, can be boiled down to. Perception is reality. And what this show is basically gearing to do, what is the underlying focus of this show, is to just completely put as many bullet holes in that ideology as possible, because it's utter nonsense. And there's not really anything that I can do except talk about, what's playing out in the world, the events that are playing out in the world, discuss the underlying causal factors for those events playing out. But I cannot get anybody to accept that. It's impossible to make anyone accept the notion that there is such a thing as truth. That's the first and only belief required. You need to believe that there is such a thing as truth to aspire to move your spirit towards. That's what the spiritual journey is, folks. That's what it's about. It's about the belief that there is such a thing as truth. It can be discovered, and you can discover it. Solipsism tells people that there is no truth, so don't bother trying to find it. Don't become a seeker. Stay complacent. Accept. Just trust whatever perceptions you happen to have at the moment. Right. Don't try to go any further than that. Just accept. That's what solipsism is. And every dictator, every tyrant, every king, every bully, every totalitarian regime that has ever existed, that has been the underlying philosophy that they have tried to get their subjects, their slaves, to accept. If you don't believe me, just look throughout history. Study history, and you will see this underlying ideological thread throughout everywhere where misery has developed and followed it. Okay? So that's all I'll say on solipsism, but we'll get into it as we discuss worldview. Now, last show, we talked about the emotional polarities, and they were love and fear. These are the two essential emotional qualities that we can ever really experience. Everything else that we experience within us is an outgrowth of one of these two seemingly polar dynamics, love and fear. Love is the basis for everything that we refer to as good, everything we refer to as uplifting, everything that we say moves us forward in our journey of evolution, everything that creates order in our lives. is based in the underlying emotional polarity that we call love, the good feeling. Okay? And what this really is, when you get down deep into it and examine it further, you understand that what love really is the force that expands consciousness, the force that helps consciousness to move to ever greater vistas, to make it flower, to make it take in a wider view. The opposite polarity, which we identified as fear, is the force which tries to shut down human consciousness. It is the force which is the compression force. It isn't the expansionary force. It's the force which basically contracts consciousness inward and tries to stifle it and strangle it and keep people's eyes and minds and hearts closed to opening up and looking at what really is, what is really there, discovering the truth. That's what fear is. Fear can only ever lead to chaos. It can only ever lead to everything we experience as bad, as stifling our evolutionary growth, as evil. What we call evil is rooted in this basic emotional dynamic. When we come into harmony with the emotional polarity called love within ourselves, an internal state develops, and we call that sovereignty or dominion. This is when a person becomes unified with themselves. The three aspects of their consciousness become one. They become as one. So as they think, so they feel, and so they act. And they cannot be pulled apart from that. Their actions are in keeping with how they feel and how they think about anything. This is a person in internal harmony, in self-love, in balance with themselves. Okay? And this is a balanced brain as well. A person with a balanced neocortex, the higher thought center of the human brain. The left hemisphere and the right hemisphere operate in cohesiveness, in coherence. Okay? That is what we refer to as sovereignty or dominion within. The rulership of the kingdom of self. When fear strikes the heart of mankind, the exact opposite happens. There is no internal sovereignty. There is no internal dominion. The person experiences states of internal confusion, disruption, and disharmony, disunity. They don't understand what's taking place within them, and therefore they really can't understand what's taking place around them, because one is a reflection of the other. So we call this state confusion. It could also be referred to as imbalance. Okay, so some would refer to it as self-loathing. You're not in self-harmony or self-love. Okay, you're in a state of internal confusion and internal chaos, because what's really taking place inside of you is fear. Once you're in fear, you're in confusion, and you could easily be led and controlled. When the dynamic energy of love is expressed outwardly into the world, a state results in the external world, the screen, so to speak, on which the movie of our lives plays out. Okay, the external world. And this state, when the internal dynamic energy of love is expressed outwardly and it flowers in the world, this state is called freedom. Freedom, that's what freedom is. Okay? And that's why we're so far away from that state in the modern world. That's why it seems to be slipping away from us. Because most of us are making the free will decision to choose fear over that vibrant, dynamic energy called love, which is the expansion of consciousness. More people than not are choosing to look the other way, ignore what's going on, or even partake in it for their own comfort. Okay? They're choosing fear. They're choosing confusion. They're choosing the dynamic of chaos. See, this is essentially what this is. What the explanation of these forces is the understanding of natural law principles. This is how the external reality that we experience is created, through choosing one of these forces or the other. In every decision that we make, when we act, our behaviors are governed by the choice that we make regarding one of these two dynamics, love or fear. The end. That's it. If you want to say that's preachy, you're trying to tell me how it really works, say whatever you like. Because that's all that's really happening here. That's what we're doing. That's how we create our reality, by choosing one of these two forces. And it's critical to understand this. This is why the events that are playing out in the world seem so chaotic, because we don't understand this as a people. We've been led astray. We've never been taught the dynamics of natural law principles. We don't know how they work. And so people make decisions based in confusion internally. And when that happens, they're governed by the force of fear. And what that leads to in its external expression is a state known as control. Because a confused person is making their decisions based in fear, and they're choosing control. They're actually leading themselves into control, and they're leading other people into control. And they actually believe in their misguided notions, in their confused state of consciousness, that they can ever create order by choosing the polarity of fear. And this is like saying, I just did a load of laundry, okay? I'm taking a load of laundry out of my washer, and it's sopping wet, okay? The clothes are completely wet, and I want them dried. That's my intention. That's my wish, okay? I want these clothes dry because I want to wear them, and I don't want to wear sopping wet clothes. It's a very simple analogy to comprehend. What do you need to do to dry the clothes? Well, there's two dynamics, wetness and dryness. And the only thing that really separates them is the amount of moisture. See, it's a seeming polarity. It isn't really a polarity because there's only moisture, okay? Or it's lack, which is called dryness. Now, either you remove the moisture through some method and you allow the clothes to dry, or you keep adding moisture to the clothes. That's it. They're the only two ways it can go. It can't go any other way. Okay? You're either going to add moisture or you're going to add the polarity of dryness, which is the absence of moisture. Very simple. Now, saying that I'm going to create order by wanting more control in the world, which many people think is the way to create more order. Okay? Cops think this. Police think this. Military people think this. Politicians think this. Judges think this. Even people who write tickets and put them on people's cars in cities throughout the country, they think this. They think if there's no externally imposed control, chaos will emerge. Well, newsflash, folks. You don't understand natural law principles. You just don't. Because that's like saying, I'm going to take those clothes that I want dry, I'm going to take them, put them on the ground, I'm going to go get my garden hose, and I'm going to keep spraying them with the garden hose, and I'll dry them. You just wait and see. You just wait and see. I'll dry those clothes by continuing to hit them with this hose, with the water from this hose. Guaranteed I'm going to do it. Don't you know? You just watch. Well, anybody that has two brain cells to rub together will understand very quickly, you can stay there till the death of the universe, and you will never dry those clothes that way. It ain't going to happen. The end. Good luck. You're beating your head against the wall to try to prove something to your own ego that is against natural law principles. It doesn't work that way. And there's not really any other easier, more gentle way to say it. You're wrong. People need to admit that think this way, that they're wrong. They need to make an apology to themselves. They bought a lie because they don't understand how natural law works. And I'm not claiming that this is how natural law works. I'm not saying that I believe this is how natural law works. And again, some people will see this as arrogant. Some people will say that, I'm egotistical for saying that I understand this. I'm not claiming this is how natural law works. I'm not telling you that this is my belief. I'm telling people out there that I do understand that this is how natural law works. I'm okay with stating that I know that, because if you know that 2 + 2 = 4, you should not be uncomfortable in saying and stating that you do know that that is how those numbers add together. If you do know that gravity is an effect on a planet and it operates with a certain amount of force, and if you drop a ball from a specific height, it will act upon that piece of mass. That's called the law of gravity. It exists. It operates. It doesn't require your belief. It doesn't care whether you believe in it or not. Your belief is irrelevant. Your willingness to accept what the truth is in that instance is irrelevant. If you step off a cliff, you are bound by that law. That's natural law principles. And to understand what we're going to talk about tonight, which is worldview, you need to have a firm grasp in those polarities, love and fear, how they work and what they create. What they create. That's the basis, the fundamentals of natural law principles. We're going to talk about how these are related to worldview. We're going to talk about how they're related to the human brain. So, let's get into tonight's topic, which we'll unpack over the next almost hour and a half. Another thing I want to mention before I even start to get into the topic tonight, which is worldview and the worldview schism. The schism of worldview. That's the topic for this evening. I want to let everybody know that in-house I do have a guest who is a personal friend of mine. His name is Darrell Rowlands, and he is going to share some of his views on the schism of worldview a little bit later on the show tonight, and he is going to tell his story about how he became involved in the freedom movement and how he got involved, in the Philadelphia area as a prominent activist. So he'll be coming up probably in a little while on the show, but he's in house tonight, and we'll be getting to him most likely in the second hour of the broadcast tonight. So today, what I want to really unpack is the concept of worldview and worldview schism. Okay? Now, there are basically two extremely imbalanced competing worldviews in the world. It's like love and fear, okay? Except both of these are based in fear. Both of these are worldviews that lead to disorder, disharmony, control, chaos, everything we view and think of as evil. Everything that brings anything bad to our lives, that makes us uncomfortable, that makes us suffer. These are the two fundamental underlying worldviews. Neither one of them are based in reality. They're both based in the illusion of the emotional polarity that we call fear. Okay? This is an illusionary state. It really doesn't exist. It's the absence of that which is real. It's the absence of that which is true, which is the love dynamic. That's what the universe is. That's all there really is. This fear dynamic exists only because we choose illusion and we choose to ignore that which is. That's it. It's the only reason fear has come to the expression that it has come to on our world. Now, these worldviews, one of them is based in an extreme left-brained schism. A person who holds an extremity of left-brain attitudes, beliefs, and lives their life in this left-brain prison modality. They have hardly any connection to the right side of the brain. So we talked about the physiology of the brain. The left side is the so-called male side of the brain. Its functions govern logic, scientific thought, mathematical thought, language, analytical thought, the ability to break down concepts. That's what the left brain is. The right brain hemisphere, its functions govern intuition, holistic thought, seeing things in states of unity consciousness, a feminine, nurturing instinct, connection with higher levels of spiritual awareness, and the love principle. These are right brain modalities. It also governs creativity, creative expression, music, art, dance, etc. These are right brain modalities. A person in left brain consciousness only can become very brilliant. Many scientists are extreme left brain thinkers, and many of them, doctors, lawyers, mathematicians, etc., they're very left brain. And many of them, not all, but in general, do not have a very developed right brain modality. Some do, but the majority by far are very developed in the left brain, and the right brain suffers as a result of not really having a lot of usage. And these functions become dampened in the right brain when somebody lives in this five-sensory worldview. Now I'm going to discuss this worldview. And there's a name for it. The name for this extremely left brain imbalanced worldview is known as the worldview of randomness. Randomness. Like the state of being random. R-A-N-D-O-M. Randomness. These are the characteristics of this imbalanced left-brained worldview. Now, when you hear these, you're going to think, well, these are really seemingly right-brained concepts or notions, but they're not. They're a result of holding a very left-brain worldview for most of one's life. See, what the brain is doing is it's reaching out and trying to bring balance to an extreme state of imbalance. And by holding and living in a left brain modality of consciousness through most of one's life, what somebody internally, spiritually, subconsciously is seeking, is desiring, is the absence of control, the absence of trying to order, desperately to order something and make sense of something, because that's all they do with the left brain, over and over and over and over, repetitively, throughout the tasks of their daily life and existence. So this worldview, the schism, of the worldviews that we're talking about, there's a left brain one, there's a right brain one. The left-brained, imbalanced worldview is called the theory or the worldview of randomness. And here are the characteristics of this worldview. Somebody who accepts the worldview of total randomness thinks, in general, that the universe is a cosmic accident. The universe is a cosmic accident. Okay? There is no underlying purpose for the existence of anything. There is no underlying intelligence that governs the workings of nature. There is no underlying intelligence in nature. It's all accidental, random principles. That's it. A person who subscribes to the worldview of randomness believes that there is no such thing as natural law principles. Everything that I talked about in previous weeks, everything that I talked about leading up to the discussion of worldview, about how the polarities of love and fear work to create what we experience, they believe that does not exist to them. Everything is purely random chance happenings. We're not really directing what we create through what we choose. Because there is no such thing as natural law to a person subscribing to the underlying philosophy of randomness, essentially existence is purposeless. There is no purpose for existence at all. There's no reason for you to be here. You came from nothing, you're returning to nothing. It is an existentialist worldview, and it is also a solipsistic worldview. This worldview is based in solipsism. It is also based in atheism. And every one of these dynamics that I explained that this worldview is about are the hallmarks of atheism, solipsism, and scientism. Those who worship at the altar of science and think science is the be-all and end-all of the explanation of all things that are manifest essentially hold this worldview. And most left-brain scientists think about it. They believe in the notion of a totally random worldview, that the universe is a cosmic accident. It sprang forth from an infinitesimally small singularity for no reason in a single moment and has no purpose. Now, if you believe that, I have some land out in the swamps of West Virginia and in New Orleans, and I have a bridge over Brooklyn that I'd like to sell you for a really great price because you would believe anything if you believe that notion. If somebody can say, just give me this one, and then I'll explain everything after that, just give me that one, what wouldn't you believe? And this is the underlying ideology in cosmology. The so-called Big Bang Theory. The universe springs from an infinitesimal singularity for no reason, okay? And just accept that, and then I'll explain everything that happened after that. That's what modern cosmology, at least the dominant form of modern cosmology, would sell us. Well, this is an extremely left-brained, imbalanced worldview. And again, it's based in, and its hallmarks are the idea that there is no underlying intelligence in nature. Nature has no plan. It is not governed by any natural law. There is no intelligence that orders it, okay? And this leads to and is an outgrowth of the ideology of atheism. They feed back on themselves. This worldview and atheism are intricately interwoven. 99.9% of the time, they lead to a dual left-brain imbalance called solipsism. Okay, with one form of this left-brain imbalance is solipsism. Nothing can be known. The other form of this left brain imbalance is scientism. We can explain it all. Okay? There is nothing outside of five-sensory reality that we cannot explain because that's all that exists. Five-sensory reality, we'll study what we can perceive with the five senses and that which we can extend with our instruments that we call technology, that are extensions of those five senses, and we could explain it all. And it's all random. It's all accidental. The universe is a huge dead machine. A huge dead machine. That's what the ideology of randomness would have people believe. And I'll tell you something. There are many people in the freedom movement that ascribe to this worldview. I've been at meetings, and this is what people, even in the freedom movement, they say, yeah, I understand the encroachments on my freedom. I understand that we're, under attack with our personal and civil liberties. I get all of that. And I still think there's no such thing as any underlying intelligence in nature. The universe is a dead machine. We are nothing but dead biological computers, essentially, at an atomic molecular level. And that's it. Now, again, this is extreme left brain imbalance. And people buy this notion because of the old form of science, this Newtonian science. And it's a twisted form of Newtonian science because not even Isaac Newton thought like that. Okay, but it's a twisted form of this Newtonian scientific worldview that is so out of date that is not even really at the cutting edge of modern science anymore. But this is what people have bought because that's what's been in their textbooks in the Soviet educational system that we're all indoctrinated into, essentially. Okay? That's where they bought this left brain notion. It's reinforced through the media. It's reinforced through what I call old science. It isn't cutting edge science. This is an old and henceforth, in the modern age, a disproven form of science. Scientists at the cutting edge of scientific thought today have actually disproven this notion with repeated scientific observation and testing under controlled conditions. You don't even need to believe that it isn't that way. It can be proven scientifically in today's age that it isn't that way. And scientists at the cutting edge of cosmology, who are worth their salt, I should say, they have a new way of looking at the workings of natural law and the workings of cosmology that incorporates consciousness and incorporates underlying intelligent ordering principles. Not many people hear about these because they're very suppressed by the mainstream media, and they're very suppressed even by the scientific community that wants to hold on to the old paradigm, the old way of looking at nature, what has been called old science. And it's a good name for it because it's an aging dinosaur, and it needs to be done away with because it doesn't really serve who we are. Now, let's switch gears and look at, well, let's stay on this for another few minutes because let's look at what this left brain worldview really leads to, okay? So it's rooted in atheism, solipsism, and scientism is what grows out of it, okay? Either the notion that perception is reality or the notion that everything can be explained through the five senses or the extensions of them. So those are the outgrowths of it. What you get from either one of those ideologies, since there is essentially no truth, or man gets to determine that which is true based on what he can perceive, you get an ideology that inevitably grows out of this way of seeing the world, this poisonous, left-brain imbalanced worldview called randomness. And this is called, this underlying ideology that grows out of this state of mind, this left-brain way of thinking, is called moral relativism. Now you'll notice all of these things are essentially based in randomness, or that there is no such thing as this. There is no such thing as that. There is no objective or concrete this or that. So moral relativism is there's no concrete morals. There is no such thing as right or wrong. Okay? This is this extreme left brain notion, right, wanting justification for this extremely controlled way of thinking and an outlet for it. And it wants to say, I want to be able to have total freedom to do what I want based on my perceptions, my comfort levels, my way of seeing the world. And that's called moral relativism. that there is no such thing, essentially, in people's mind who think like this as right or wrong. Those who are really imbalanced toward this worldview. There's no such thing as morals, objectively. There's no such thing as objective moral principles to someone that holds this worldview. What does that mean? Well, since there's no such thing as God, there's no such thing as truth, it's only my perceptions that govern what's really taking place around me. And there's really no such thing as right or wrong. I can basically do whatever I want at the expense of anybody else. And that ideology is called social Darwinism. Social Darwinism. Look it up and read about it if you don't already understand it. And that's the ideology that's basically running this world. The ideology of the so-called elites of this world. I won't call them the elite anymore because they're not my elites. But, who people refer to as the elites, those who are really running the show in the hidden corridors of power, this is their ideology. Social Darwinism, the survival of the socially fittest. And they believe that the socially fittest is governed by genetics. When you talk with them and read their papers, or perhaps belong to some of the organizations that they control or deal with or work through. Okay? Social Darwinism. It's one of their underlying ideologies. And from there, since, your genes govern, your genes basically govern your status in society, that's what a social Darwinist believes, then you could start playing the game of playing God. And that's called eugenics. And if you don't understand what eugenics is, you should really look it up and study it and understand it. Because this is also the ideology of the so-called elites. That they have the right to decide who will live and who will die. Eugenics is many things. It's tampering. It's genetic manipulation. It's selective breeding. It's controlling who is allowed to breed. But at its core, all you really need to understand about it is it's one thing. It's playing God. It's deciding who is allowed to live and who is allowed to die and who will die. That's it. That's what eugenics is. And this is the outgrowth of this extremely poisonous left-brained worldview that is based in identification with matter, identification with the five senses, and basically taking the ideology that there is no purpose for existence and natural law does not exist. This is the overarching worldview known as randomness. The randomness worldview. So, I think we covered that pretty well. And if there's anybody that wants to call in and discuss this, the call-in number is 347-884-9417. 347-884-9417. So I think I will leave it there for this hour. We covered the left brain imbalanced worldview known as randomness. On the next hour, I'm going to get into the right brain imbalanced worldview, and then I'm going to talk to our in-house guest, Darrell Rowlands. So let's see. I'll give the websites one more time. Okay, my website is whatonearthishappening.com. You can listen to this show every Tuesday night live from my site at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Revolution Broadcasting, their website revolutionbroadcasting.com, picks up the show. The first hour they pick up live, 8 to 9 on Tuesday evening. Then they replay the second hour. They replay that as a podcast on delay. They play that on Thursday evenings from 8 to 9. So if you're listening live on my site, you can catch the entire show live at whatonearthishappening.com. So I'll see you For those listening live, I'll see you in a moment. And for those listening on Revolution Broadcasting, tune in Thursday at 8 p.m. I'm What on Earth is Happening. I'm Mark Passio. This has been What on Earth is Happening. We'll see you at the top of the next hour.